So, okay, there's a couple more things I want to get to here, and then I want to get to your program and everything too. There's so much I want to get to. But just quickly talk to me. I just want to acknowledge your beautiful rainbow baby, and just, you alluded to some of this already on how some fear around that, how that was feeling as you were pregnant. So just talk to me a little bit about, like, how long was that after you had your miscarriage, and just kind of what that process looked like.
Yeah, so I allowed myself, which is advice that I give to anyone that's obviously going through any type of loss, pregnancy loss, trauma, um, making sure that they do actually witness their emotions and their experience before they're actually going into trying to conceive again, because
Oh,
your body does hold on to the trauma, or it holds on. If you haven't processed the emotions,
yeah.
your body holds on to that, and it actually does affect the pregnancy. It does it the way that our body works, it goes into it's internalized, and that's where we house our beautiful babies. So
Fascinating.
it's just, if which any mum would want the best possible pregnancy and the best possible outcome for their baby, it starts with you choosing to witness your story, witness your trauma, witness the emotions before you actually want to go into trying to conceive. Because that was we I waited, didn't take the advice of the nurse that,
Mhm.
going into the D&C. She's like, oh, in a couple of months I'll be like,
That lovely nurse that we love so much.
yes.
I have some choice words for her, but anyway, her, yeah.
Yes, that one. um I was like, yes, your physical body might appear to be okay
Yeah.
on the outside,
And what
but
about
internally,
right?
like, there's so much stuff that's happening. And it wasn't until I was going through my healing, I was like, hell no, I can't even comprehend falling pregnant right now. I'm shit scared. If I
Yeah.
fell pregnant now,
Oh,
I wouldn't be able to cope.
yeah.
So I obviously did a lot of work physically, emotionally, spiritually on myself before I got to the point where I was like, okay, now I can fall pregnant. And if everything was to go wrong again,
Mhm.
I know I will be in a lot of pain, but I will be okay.
Yep.
I know that I can support myself out of it, and I know that I will be okay.
Yeah.
Um, so at that point, I was like, okay, now I am ready. And I think it was about 5 months afterwards. I'd done a lot of intense work
Mhm. Mhm.
um, on myself, holistically. So um, we I think we were trying, and I think I may have, like, with the moment that we decided to try, I think I got one period, and I remember being like super triggered, going, oh my gosh, like I'm not pregnant. And then I processed all of that and the emotions and the fear and the anxieties and all that came up. Um, and then I think the second month we actually fell pregnant. And I remember seeing an acupuncturist as well after the miscarriage. So there was one thing that she said to me, and she's like, don't go back on the pill.
Mhm.
Um, she said, you know your body. Look for the signs of ovulation,
Mhm.
feel the feelings of ovulation. And she goes, you don't need to test all of the time. You don't need the strips. You don't need the temperature gauges. You don't need any of that. She goes,
Yeah.
you've got to listen.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I did. I was like, okay, I'm listening. I felt the feelings of ovulation. I was like, holy hell, someone's like shoving a knife in the side of my my groin.
Yes.
Like, what is this?
I feel that.
Um, I saw the signs,
Oh my gosh.
and I was like, okay, this is it. And we fell pregnant, obviously, naturally.
Mhm.
Um, I had a healthy pregnancy in terms of the medical system's eyes. In terms of my eyes, I was shit scared the whole way through.
Yeah.
I got past this, obviously the 7 weeks. I was like, okay, I'll get past the first trimester. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I got past the first trimester. I was like, okay, I'm not okay. Then I was like, what if I lose her in the second trimester? And then I got past the second trimester. And then it was like, oh my gosh, what if I have a stillbirth? Like, then I was like, every moment I was like, okay, there was something else that kept popping up for me to address and look at and go, I need to process this. This is at every turning point, there was something new. I was never okay. I was never
Yeah.
out of the woods.
All those what
Um,
ifs. Yeah.
and so I remember taking myself up to the hospital multiple times. I think in the second trimester, I had weird cramps and I was like, what the hell is this? So I remember taking myself up because I was like, I need to know everything's okay.
Yeah.
And everything was okay. She was okay. She was developing perfectly fine. She had a really strong heartbeat the whole way through. And then the week before, so being an epileptic, they had me scheduled for an induction because they wanted to control the environment that I was in.
Sure. Sure.
And I had to be at a hospital that was close to somewhere where they could fly me if I needed to
Mm,
see a neurologist.
gotcha.
So they obviously wanted to control everything that they could control, but throughout the entire pregnancy, I was like, this is amazing. Like, there was no seizure activity. Like, I was actually told by my GP the hormones that your body gives off through pregnancy actually feeds the brain. So it
Mm,
reduces any chances of seizures. The day that we were going up for induction, I had absolutely no thoughts of her at all being a stillborn. I was so excited.
mm,
I think I'd done a lot of the processing
yeah.
and my body was then, it felt safe for me to go up and to have her. I was actually talking to one of my coach friends about that. And she's like, if your body felt unsafe, she
Mm,
goes, that's where the labors are drawn out. That's where everything's drawn out because your body doesn't feel safe to give birth. And
mm.
you wouldn't have had a relatively easy birth.
Oh, that's
But
so interesting. Yeah.
um, being that I was induced, obviously it was very painful.
Mm,
Um, I had her within 5 hours, but she
yeah.
was stuck. She had the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck.
Oh,
And so she wasn't coming. I was pushing for 2 hours and she wasn't coming out. She ended up having to have a vacuum assisted
mm,
delivery. Again, it's trauma for me. It's trauma for her as well. Like, having her entry into the world the way that she did is trauma.
yeah.
Yeah, there was absolutely no thoughts of, I wasn't afraid at that point. I was just like, I just want her to be here. I'm so excited. But then
Mm.
when I had her, I thought I was going to bawl my eyes out. I'm like, I'm going to cry. I'm going to be like all those people on TV that cry. And I was in awe of her. I didn't cry. I was smiling and I was holding her and I was like, oh, this just
Oh.
feels so natural. And like, yeah. And then I look back, I'm like, should I have cried? Like, I feel so weird that I didn't.
And then you're just like, I'm not gonna question it. It's fine.
So yeah, so
That's so funny.
I was just so blissful. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, she's here. And
Mm.
then I was holding her and I
Oh,
was just
I get
like, oh, she's here.
that relief after everything you've been through. Like, that's a relief, even if you have not gone through pregnancy loss, but to have endured what you already did, or anybody here listening that has gone through some trauma leading up to a sweet little soul coming here. I mean, that it must be a relief like you just simply cannot describe. I mean,
Mm. It's it's weird because again, I thought I'll have her earth side and I'll be okay.
mhm.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
There's still so many triggers of loss
Yeah.
that I'm processing every single day and I have for the last 5 years. So, I'm always the crazy person. I tell people to personify fear. I tell them to talk to them, because
Mhm, mhm.
fear is, when you can shine light on it, it's not that big.
Yeah,
But it can be overwhelming, and it can be scary, and it's all it is. It's, you know, our past um experiences being projected into our future, into our reality.
yeah.
So acknowledging it for what it is,
Mhm.
and seeing it for what it is, you're like, okay, that's fine. Like, you're coming and you're here because I have gone through pain before, and you don't want me to go through pain again, but
Okay, fair.
I'm okay. It's fair.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but parenting after loss is definitely, has its challenges as well. I had her up at, for the first time, she had to go under GA to get her dental work done. And I cried like the whole day leading up to that, because I was like, what if she goes under and she doesn't wake up?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so your mind just
And I just, it took off.
runs.
And yeah. And I was like, and my husband's like, don't do it then. And I'm like, but she needs to have the dental treatment done. He's like, okay, so then, he goes, it's going to be okay. So
Something's gotta give. Yeah,
he was like trying to be factual with me.
sure.
Like, she's in good hands. Like, he does this all the time. Like, he was trying to, which sometimes that works. Like, you need to have the facts in front of you to
Yeah,
go, oh, okay, well, yeah, where am I really scared something's going to happen? And I'm
right.
sure if anything was going to happen when she was under, they would stop, or they would let me know, or there'd be
Yeah, yeah.
communication. So I had to obviously process a lot of those fears, because they were mine, they're not hers.
Mhm.
And kids are very open to energies. So I had to also be aware of the energy that I was in. And she was definitely picking up on a lot of my
Mm.
anxiety. Um, but it's, they're very receptive little beings.
Yes,
So
they
it's
are.
very important that we look at ourselves a lot of the time,
Yeah.
and know that the fears aren't theirs. And
Mm,
especially like if they're going to be climbing trees and
yeah.
running outside and hurting themselves, like, if you're afraid of any of that, like, it's our fear projected out onto them. So it's what we then have to look at and go, oh, okay, this is me. I
Mhm.
need to figure this out. I need to know why I'm so scared of her hurting herself.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
because they just want to play. Like, you don't want to take that away from them. You
Yeah,
don't want to
and they
be
need to
wrapping them up.
learn. Like, they do need to
Yeah.
get hurt. That sounds so bad, like, not, like, majorly or anything, but, to have little cuts and scrapes and bruises or hopefully small falls or whatever it is, like, they need it's, like, part of their learning almost in a way too. So, yeah, it's like, as a parent, I'm sure, like, you don't want anything bad to happen, especially knowing as the adult, we know certain things can be avoided. So, and I think especially when we've been through some type of trauma, we're like, why are we knowingly putting ourselves or our, God forbid, our children in this position where we know they could get hurt? Like, that seems silly, but yeah, I mean, the battle in our heads where that's concerned, especially after going through something like you have, or any loss really, can be, I don't know, that's, yeah, intense.
It is. And it's very, very real, and it's very valid. And again, on the outside, society just sees you as a mom. Like,
Yeah,
you're just a mom. Stop overreacting.
yeah,
I'm like, the dentist had no idea how scared I was
yeah.
to just do something which probably to him is seemingly insignificant.
Right.
I do
Like, it
this
might
every day.
seem irrational to some people, but, like, I love that what you said, this is 5 years along after you've been through sort of like the acute parts of this grief and your loss and everything. So, like, again, when we say grief is a lifelong process and triggers continue to come up and all these this is a perfect example of something
Mm.
like that, and it is no less valid than anything you were going through the day that it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It just presents itself in different ways.
Exactly.
It keeps giving you opportunities to see it, to heal it. And
Yeah.
again, it's like, I always go back to the onion. Like, healing is like an onion, and
Mm.
like an onion, you've got to peel back layers, and when you peel back layers, you cry. And there's always a quote from the Shrek movie that I keep every time then I see the onions. It's
Love
like,
that
you're so wrapped up in layers, onion boy, you're afraid of your own feelings.
one.
And it's
That's
so
gold.
true, because it's it's that whole, like, yes, you've got to peel back the layers. That every time we are presented with something, it's a new layer. It's not that you heal it once and it's gone. It's just another layer, and it's going deeper. You're healing on a deeper level,
Yeah.
but it has the potential to make you cry. It has the potential to make you feel feelings that you don't possibly want to feel.
Brings things up. Yeah.
But like you said, it's an ever evolving journey. It's not ever just like a cut and dry, I'm done grieving and I'm done healing. It's
Mhm.
just this ever evolving thing. I still cry about my miscarriage, and I still cry about my dad. And it's not ever anything that I put pressure on to say to myself, oh, I can't do that, or I should be over that. It's just that, oh, here it is. Like,
Mhm.
okay, this is
Different
what I've got to
different
do right
form
now.
now maybe, or it's manifesting itself in another way, or a way that you haven't experienced yet or haven't for a long time. And it's, feelings and emotions like that, like they don't ask for your opinion on when they should show up, they just will. So that's why all of these coping tools and all of these things that we've talked about some of today are perfect ways to help combat those things, so they're less aggressive or less, assertive and intense in the moment. It's not like they won't knock you on their ass. They still might. But there are ways that we can lessen the intensity or lessen the shock of it when and if they do come along,
Mm.
because they will. And I know a lot of people will have, kind of have an issue with like healing and, oh, is healing even possible or whatever. It is, number one. And it's why I always say like healing, not healed, right? Because it's exactly everything you just said. It's not only a process, but I love what you said about it just goes deeper every time. And you continue to heal in deeper, more meaningful, more impactful, beautiful ways. And yeah, there might be a little pain and little like paper cuts and stuff here and there along the way, but if you're coping and dealing with it properly, then it hopefully will be, less of a burden and less heavy, I think, when and if it does come up, for sure.
Yeah. And that's what I've always said, each time you process the emotions, the intensity lessens each time. Like,
Exactly.
and then it sort of comes and you're like, oh, okay, this is it. But it's not something that's actually, like you said, going to knock you off your feet. It's something that you can in the moment just be okay with and process, and it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the thing that's going to be overwhelming you and keeping you stuck for a long period of time, or yeah, completely knocking you off your feet and back into the depths of like that acute grief again. It's
Right,
just,
right.
it lessens the intensity,
Mhm.
but it's never to say that it's never going to come back.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people go like, oh, well, but I address that, I process that emotion. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but also that emotion is attached to multiple different things in you and in your life.
Mm.
So it's never to say that that emotion is going to be processed in all of these different ways each time it
Right.
presents. Um, so each time it does come, it's just from a different memory or from a different,
New iterations of
moment.
it almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've just got the opportunity again to process it again, see it, not get frustrated that it's
Yeah.
there, and go,
You could just
okay,
say,
yep.
hello, old friend. Okay, we're back. Good times. We can laugh about it now. But but it's true. We kind of just have to greet it again. And it's exhausting. It can be so exhausting. Just when we think we've kind of, gotten through maybe certain aspects of our guilt or regret or something, or some anger or whatever it is that comes up, like I said, different iterations. It might and we continue to evolve as humans, as souls, as we can go through our life. So, things are always going to pop up. So it's, I hate to say it so bluntly, but like, get used to it. Like, this is welcome to grief. Welcome to the club that no one wanted to be a part of, but here we are. So yeah, like I said, we can laugh. But so I really want to just talk about the work that you do, because obviously this is losses become gains, and you have made such gains and created something so beautiful from everything that you have been through. So you founded the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss. You have a program, you have a podcast. So like I mentioned briefly earlier, like all of this will be linked in the show notes, of course. But I just want you to talk a little bit about the work you do, how you came to do that work, and just like how people can work with you and what you serve people who are going through, this type of loss, or they want to learn more.
Yeah. So like you said, I founded the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss because out of my loss, I realized there was a gap in the system in terms of specific pregnancy loss support, whether that's, early loss, late pregnancy loss, or stillbirths, or, baby loss. Like there's a gap. And I felt that. And my clients at the time, the way that I started working was with one-on-one sessions with angel mums, and they felt that too. There was always something missing. And they felt like they didn't have the specific support and understanding that they needed to start their healing and recovery. So not long into my pregnancy, my rainbow pregnancy, I actually enrolled in a life coaching program. I was like, okay, this is kind of what I'm going to do. Like, it was actually there's a couple of different directions I wanted to go in, but my mom's like, pregnancy loss is actually why you're even thinking about it.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so this is it. I started working with lost moms through one-on-one coaching. I developed a 3-month program, which essentially, when I reflected back over my journey, was every single step that I took in my healing and recovery. And I just broke it down into 3 core pillars. And then each month we worked through one of those core pillars. I then had run a few mums through that. And then I had some more angel mums reaching out to me going, I need to know how to do what you do. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. So I originally said no. I'm like, I don't know how to teach you that.
Yeah.
And then one of them reached out again about 3 months later, and she's like, no, I need to know how you do what you
You don't
do.
understand.
You don't understand. You're showing up in the world. You're helping people. How can I do that?
Wow.
So that's where the pregnancy loss practitioner certification was born, because women were obviously wanting to know how they could be that support for others and have that confidence and the structure behind them. So what I did was I stripped back all of essentially the programs that I had created and put those 3 core pillars into the certification, created a curriculum around those so that then I was in the position to teach everything that I had previously done. I then added a business element to it so that obviously when they've gone through and had the knowledge, you're like, well, now what? Because a lot of coaching programs kind of leave people in the lurch and go, well, I don't actually know what to do with this information now. How do I set up my business or coaching programs? So I added the business element into it, because I'm like, so now you've got the knowledge, you've got I added a business pillar, which then runs them through the basics of the foundations of business in terms of their niche, how to, where they want to position themselves.
Yeah.
Some, all of the,
Nitty gritty,
all the nitty gritty technical,
details of business.
Yeah. Back end stuff that
So
no one likes to do.
Yeah.
So that's all that's all part of now the certification. And then I added in my bespoke course creation. So then they take all of that and then we work together on building out their core offer. And then after probably 4 months, 5 months, they can go from learning the curriculum, learning the content, implementing and integrating it into their life, because I've essentially designed it so it's healing the healer. Like they're able to work through the content, learn how to do it themselves, see the difference that it makes, and then be able to teach someone and go, oh my gosh, this is actually how it works.
It's amazing.
And then obviously have a program and offering a coaching, package to offer at the end of that period as well. So they can go through pricing it, how to talk about it, how to structure it. So it's going to give the person the most transformation possible. So that's certificate 1. And then I developed another certification, which is certificate 2, which is trauma informed care and nervous system regulation. Understanding that pregnancy loss is trauma. It's trauma to the mom, it's trauma to the dad. And the depth of how that trauma is in their body. And like I said before, how we really do need to understand that the trauma presents pre-developmental and pre-cognitive for the baby.
Yeah.
So the trauma that we don't process as the mum gets transferred into the baby, like when you're pregnant again. So it's
so
never to
important.
say, yeah, it's such a missing piece. Like you don't get that. The medical system doesn't recognize it as trauma.
Clearly not.
No.
Certainly not in your case. But I think
No.
generally speaking, it's also a huge gap, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, massive missing piece.
Yeah.
And only because I experienced it. It was a very traumatic experience for me. And then seeing how that trauma presented in my life afterwards, even years afterwards, I'm still processing my trauma now. And I've got my 5-year-old daughter. Like my nervous system was constantly on the lookout for threat. And I can understand now, going into the depths of trauma, how and why that's presenting. And I want other people to be trained in that, so that when they do see women, coming to them, they can see them through the lens of trauma and go, okay, I've got the tools and the awareness to support you on a much deeper level than you will ever get, like anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's now certification 2. And then we can integrate that into they have support, obviously, through the entire program from myself. So then we can integrate that knowledge into their offering. And then they can start, obviously, serving people and start healing people, because, there needs to be, and this is what I found out for myself, and also for the women that I was supporting at the very beginning, was they needed someone who had been in their shoes. They had all been to therapists and said the therapy left something missing.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Yeah.
They needed that validation from someone to go, you know what? I get it. I get that this grief is different. I get that you're experiencing trauma. And because a lot of therapists aren't trauma-informed therapists either. You've got to specifically search for those types of people as well. So to have someone that's specifically loss support that is that can specialize in the trauma aspect of it as well, is such a powerful place to be able to support someone from. And I've had now mums come from multiple different places all over the world, multiple different experiences with loss. Mine was a miscarriage, but I have women that have had terminations for medical reasons, baby loss, recurrent losses, even one lady that didn't experience loss herself, but she was training to be a counselor. So she's like, I need to know how I can support those that are navigating pregnancy loss, because it's coming from someone that has experienced it.
Right.
Like I've created the entire program around experiencing it.
Right.
And you're not going to get that in a textbook. at
Preventative
the
speech time.
university.
Yeah, I feel like that's as a coach, like that's kind of what we do. We are guiding previous past versions of ourselves. So
Yeah.
we know better than anybody. And then, add on any other certifications we've gotten or, coaching, like we've educated ourselves even more on top of it to provide the most well-rounded, like comprehensive, not to sound so textbook, but like support, guidance and that people could possibly get. Because it's very heart-centered. It's coming from a place of like, I have been where you are, take my hand, let's do this together, kind of a thing. So that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's because, like you said, you've done all of these like extra trainings as well. Like, as the person that's gone through it, what all those extra steps you need to take to feel
Yes.
holistically healing, recovering.
Mhm.
And so then you add all of that in because you're like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't stop here. You
There's so
need
many
all of
little
this.
nuances. Yeah.
And you're not going to get that from a general, you know, therapist or counselor or psychologist because
Mhm.
they obviously are trained in such a broad way. They're not going to be able to take you those extra steps that you need. Whereas if you're able to go and see someone that has been there and has been their experience, they know those extra steps. They
Yep.
know those extra places that you need support in because
You,
it's
you think of those.
unless you've
You've
unless
been
you've
there.
walked it, you just don't know.
How would
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And that's fair. I mean, that's not, yeah, it's like not to knock therapists or anything out there. Like we've been to therapy, right? Like
Oh
they're
yeah.
they serve a purpose. But yeah, I mean, it's just goes to show like when you're seeking very specialized, very specific help, like what you offer, like that's the magic. That's the extra oomph that you get that only you can kind of provide people that they might not get in other more like classic types of help. And that's where like that connection and that sense of community and just that sense of I feel heard and seen and not judged, and we can hold a space for those people in ways that others might be able to, but not, maybe not fully, maybe not as in depth as we could. So yeah,
Mm.
again, what a gift that grief can kind of give in the most
Yeah.
twisted way possible.
Yeah. And like I said, not to knock therapists or counselors, because yeah,
Yeah.
I did absolutely see one. And I do recommend women getting a team, like a support team around them.
Sure.
If they
Yeah.
want to see a therapist,
It doesn't have to
see
be
a
just one.
therapist. Yeah. But if they're missing that little bit of, oh, I just don't know what it is, but I'm missing something, get that added support from like a pregnancy loss practitioner or a grief expert or, like a grief coach like yourself. Like, get that added extra support from someone else, and you can have a team. Like, you don't have to have just one type of support from one person only. And that's where I think a lot of people do get stuck as well. They're like, oh, but I've already got one person. I'm like,
Like
you can
they serve
have more than one.
different purposes too. Like they're going to bring
Yeah.
different things out of you too, or get you to think about things differently, or, just, yeah, there's a reason that you might not have two therapists, but like a grief coach, for example, or pregnancy loss practitioner, like provides a very different outlook and a very different perspective on it than a
Mm.
therapist or a counselor. We're all trained differently. So,
Yeah.
and then add real life experience onto that. And, it's a whole nother can of worms, but
Yeah. And like you said, it's something, it is something beautiful that's come out of my grief. My baby touched my life in a way that I was kind of not asking to obviously experience the miscarriage, but I was asking the universe. I needed purpose. I needed fulfillment. I needed something in my life. And I was searching for years prior.
Mm.
I didn't know how. I knew I had an extra something to give to this world, and I didn't know how it was going to present itself. And obviously, going through the miscarriage, when I came out the other side of that, I was like, well, this is it. I obviously had to go through one of the darkest moments of my life, but I have found what I feel like I was put on this earth to do. And then create, obviously, support programs and then create the practitioner certification out of that.
Yeah.
When I created the support programs and the women were reaching out, I was like, okay, so what I thought I was put on this earth to do, there's something else. There's
Oh
something
yeah.
bigger that
Yeah.
the women were asking me to create. So,
Yeah.
um, and I still have those support offerings, other support offerings, obviously for lost mums who are navigating the grief. I still do have smaller programs that they can come into because, they are still in my world.
Yeah.
And I was still that person who was searching for that type of support. So they're still there.
Mhm.
Um, if anyone, obviously is looking for that extra hand, like you said and before, that extra bit of perspective, a different shift. Maybe they haven't got the results that they wanted from other support that they've gone through.
Mhm.
Um, I'm always a big believer in we've always got something to learn,
Mhm.
even if we feel like we know it all, there's always a different
We
perspective.
sure do not.
No, there's always something else. Someone else has lived
Yeah.
through the lens of a different, view and created something in a different way. So, you know, say yes to something different if you're feeling like you've tried all of the things and nothing's working.
Yeah.
Um, because chances are, and it was what my clients very early on when I started coaching, that was what they were saying
Yeah.
was, I'm glad I took that leap of faith because their lives completely shifted after that. They
Mhm.
got the support and the validation and the understanding and the tools that they needed that they didn't get before.
Yeah. There is something so powerful in that idea of like do something different. Like if you are anybody listening is feeling stagnant, is feeling stuck, is feeling like there is just no hope or things aren't going to get better or whatever, or maybe you've tried and you're just like, oh, I don't want to try one more thing, or it just, like you're just exhausted. Like I just want to see anyone who's going through that today. And uh, I bet you have also been there. I've certainly been there. And, um, there's no harm in trying a different, avenue with it. And again, I just think that's what's so special about those of us who have been through whatever traumas we have been and have created something out of that. Not only just found what we, because I empathize with you so much and like, this is what I feel like I'm meant to be doing here. And I just want to like shout it from the rooftops. And that's such a magical feeling. So I just want to like put that inspiration into people's minds today too. And it doesn't mean you have to go create programs and doing all the like the technical stuff that we're doing. And you don't have to be in the grief space or anything. Cause I get people all the time. I don't know if you do too, but some people are like, I don't know how you talk about this every day. I'm like, this is cathartic as hell, actually. I've actually actively helped myself in my own healing by talking about this ad nauseum. So joke's on you, because this has actually really helped me. But it's not for everybody. So we all have to just kind of like make, the lemonade out of whatever lemons we were given, right? And whatever that looks like to each of us. And I just want to encourage people like that can be really exciting. Like that's not something we have to fear, but as we've been saying, it's like the theme of what we're talking about today. It is a choice and it is something that we, even if we're not completely comfortable making that choice yet or taking the leap or putting the hand out metaphorically, that we kind of just have to do. We have to just whatever it is, get up the courage to do it. I mean, however you want to word it, just embrace that and welcome that change into our life. And I know that can be scary. And I know you were mentioning earlier, like, for like a year, you were kind of like, you just distanced yourself from people or just wanted to, kind of was living in the past. And I completely understand that too. We don't want to necessarily feel, even though it's so painful, we don't want to feel further away from like what we've lost or who we've lost or whatever, because that makes us feel detached from them. And that's terrifying, or like we're not ready for that. So, it's not to push anybody here into working with someone before you're ready, but just to, there is always going to be sometimes maybe an element of um apprehension and just a little resistance to it, for a variety of reasons. But we, we don't need to resist and not to stay so stuck in that.
Mm.
But anyway, I just want to validate that because I've been there and I know a lot of people are there or might be there. So, and that's valid. That's absolutely valid. But um yeah.
It's a hard place to be. And I think if you're in the depths of grief, you're definitely probably not ready to see that there is anything out there at
Mhm.
this point. But if you are starting to entertain the idea of like,
Yeah.
this isn't where this is not the rest of my life. This is not where I want to see myself the rest of my life. But how do I kind of get out of there? Sometimes it is leaping before you're ready.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is just, closing your eyes and taking that jump, or closing your eyes and putting your hand out and going, "Oh, please, I hope
Yeah.
someone's on the other side."
Anybody?
Um,
Yeah.
and
Blind faith. Yeah.
yeah, and just jumping before you're ready, because there is never going to be that perfect utopia moment of like, "Oh, okay, now everything's aligned. Now it's here." The universe is going to give you what you're asking for. It might not look wrapped up in the present that you're looking for specifically, but they're going to put someone on your path that can offer you that support that you've been after.
Yep.
Um, and it might not look like there's a line in I think it's Evan Almighty,
Mhm.
the movie,
Great
and
movie.
it's like I don't know, I can't remember the whole thing, but if he's like, if you're praying for courage, do you think God is going to give you courage or give you the opportunity to be courageous?
Ooh.
So yeah, it's not going to look the way maybe that you think it's going to look.
Yeah.
But the universe or God, whoever you believe in, is going to give you the opportunity to do the thing that you've been asking your higher power for.
Yep.
And be open to that and take the leap. Sometimes, and most often than not, you're going to have to take it before you're ready.
Yeah.
And it's going to be scary, and you're not going to know what it's going to be like on the other side. But chances are, like, it will be better than probably what you're anticipating.
So much better. Yeah.
But it's just may not be wrapped up in the present or the gift that you've been specifically asking for.
Yeah.
Um, I've always loved that quote because I'm like, oh my
It's a
gosh,
great
like,
analogy.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it's
there's
so
always
true.
there's more to it too. So like you can
Yeah.
Google it and it'll come up. But I just love that specifically, like you often asking for something, but they're not going to give you that thing. It's going to give you the opportunity to
Mhm.
do it,
The
because they're not going to
guidance.
be,
Yeah.
yeah. And you're not going to be, it's not going to just be handed to you on a silver platter.
Yeah.
So you have to take the action. You
Yep.
have to take the step. You have to take the action towards the thing that you want to bring in or call in or create for yourself, because otherwise you can just keep asking for the
Right.
signs, and you'll never see them and you'll never change because you never take the action.
Yeah, and you'll wonder why. It's like if anybody here knows grief, it's things don't go to plan, right? Like this is life. It makes us work for it in ways that we don't feel like working for it sometimes. But
Mm.
it'd be so nice to take the lazy way out sometimes, but that's just not, and yeah, we got to take the steps when we're ready, but yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's not going to necessarily be handed to us easily and maybe not in the package that we anticipated. And I love what you said because I feel very deeply about this in my own way too. Like you maybe knew you were meant to do something kind of big or impactful and soul filled with your time here, but you maybe didn't know what it was or it hadn't really come to you. And then here you are sort of, and again, I use this term loosely, on the other side of your losses here. And you're like, oh, this was it. Well, wow, this was not up my alley. Okay. This great. But once you discover that, and I've also done like a soul purpose certification that I talk about here and there. And so like that's kind of that same thing. It's you're just like, once you realize and tap into like what you're meant to be doing here and this pain, purpose from the pain and all of that, there is no going back. and you're just like, it just energizes you. Anyway, I talked about those technicolors that we see after grief sometimes, like this is a part of it. And it's like, I know this can feel very far away from people sometimes. So again, depending on where anyone listening here is at in their grief, like take this with a grain of salt, but know that this is the kind of thing that's possible. And like, how amazing is that? You know, like you said, like with the help of a coach or whoever, like it can completely shift the entire trajectory of your life in the most positive, incredible way possible. Like, how cool is that? Like that is no small
Yeah.
thing. So
Like some people are like, oh, but I don't want to find purpose in what I've been through. And I'm like,
yeah,
sometimes you never will find purpose in what you've actually been through, but there's going to be
right.
purpose and meaning in your life afterwards.
Yes.
So, it's
So
never
well
to
said.
be like, oh, I need to create like a business and all of this from it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, no, no.
That's not,
But
that ain't it.
you touched on it too. Like you don't have to go and do these big things, but just
Right.
know that even living your life to its fullest capacity is impactful. It
Yes.
is your divine right. Like we're
Yes.
here for, we're here to be walking the earth in our fullest potential.
Yeah.
And by you choosing healing without changing anything else in your life, like just if you choose to just heal you,
Yeah.
that is stepping into a purposeful, meaningful life
Yeah.
and impactful, because you'll be changing also the energy and the vibration of yourself and the people around you.
Yes.
And you'll call in different experiences in your life, and they'll be more fulfilling and more uplifting. So, just you choosing you in this moment and going, oh, I don't know how this is all going to turn out, but I'm just going to take that leap,
Yeah.
whether it is for healing, or whether it is if you want to take your experience to the next level and become a coach, become certified, and really start serving people from a different way.
Mhm.
Like just taking that leap and going, I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I know this is what I want to do, and just leap. The
Right.
universe needs you to leap.
Yes.
You
It's
need to
begging
take that
you.
first action. Yeah.
No, it's so true. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't worry about like that's where I feel like grievers can get so caught up. We can get really caught up in the past. We have anxiety over the future and all of these things. It's like, like I'm not saying push that away. Like we need to feel those things, of course, but like so much of coping with grief well and just figuring all of this out is living in the moment and having those mindfulness practices and realizing, just what there is right in front of us. But then, that's why I think journaling is so impactful. Like things might come up that we're just like, whoa, didn't see that coming, or having conversations like this. And then you're just like, oh my God, like there's these beautiful, like again, these aha moments, these realizations that you might have. Like that's how I literally came up with losses become gains, was I was in a conversation with somebody and it changed my life. And I was like, never would have seen this coming. Nobody could have told me that this would be my life or this is what I would have gotten into the day that my dad died and then officially both parents were gone. Like, not in a million years. I would have been like, go ahead and kick rocks now. Like, I don't want to hear it.
On
But
your
we
bike.
have to hear
Yeah.
these things. No, it's so true.
Yeah.
So to start just wrapping this up, we at the time of this recording too, we're kind of getting into the holiday season, and maybe there's somebody listening here today who hasn't been through, like myself, right? Like I haven't, I mean, God willing, I'm knocking on all the wood, haven't been through pregnancy loss. But it was so timely since I'm pregnant right now. And I was like, I just can only imagine what you and other women out there who have been like you alluded to, so many different types of loss, and it's all situational, right? Can be more supportive and just, there's this is probably like a big kind of question and also answer, but maybe just give some like two or three top things of like, and again, especially going into the holidays when things might be a little extra bittersweet, or God forbid the loss happens around the holidays. I lost my mom a couple weeks before Christmas. I kind of know how that is. Um, how can we just better support moms and dads, everybody who has been through some form of pregnancy loss?
I think the biggest thing is obviously, I know a lot of women or a lot of parents are afraid to break tradition. Like they
Mm.
don't want to not go to the family Christmas, or they don't want to not go to that party.
Yeah.
But inside they're like, I do not want to go.
Just like dying inside. Yeah.
Um, so obviously, yeah. And I know this can obviously, you know, go out on multiple levels as well. But obviously with pregnancy loss, it's less talked about.
Mm.
And those on the outside of the parents are like, oh no, but you should be fine. This is a happy time, be joyful, be happy. And I'm just like, it's not that way.
Right.
Like the parents can't think that way. They're going to be missing their child this Christmas. This could be that the child could be a certain age by Christmas, and then they're
Right.
grieving the milestone that their baby's going to be at that Christmas.
Yep.
The fact that their baby's not going to be opening presents or going to be at the Christmas dinner or breakfast or lunch or however that is.
Mhm.
So really, if it's the family being mindful of the actual lost parents themselves,
Mhm.
and know that they may not either want to go, or how can they include maybe the baby or some element in the Christmas celebration.
Right.
Then whether they or ask the parents what they want. Like if they want to be at the Christmas party, how can they be inclusive of their baby? Like,
Yeah.
do they want their baby to be included? If they don't, that's completely fine too.
Right.
It might be too triggering for them to see their baby's name somewhere. But more often than not, the parents want their baby to be remembered, and they want to be honored as parents.
Mhm.
So, honor them, acknowledge their loss, and if they want to include their baby in the Christmas, let them do that and be okay with that, and maybe get everyone else on board as well. Like tell the rest of the family that's going to be there what's happening,
Right.
so
Right.
that then when the parents come, like the rest of the family is not going to be in shock.
Yeah.
Um, and be okay if the parents are just like, no, we don't actually want to be there this year,
Yeah.
or that they show up and leave early
Mhm.
because they can't cope.
Yeah.
And, to the parents, like to the lost parents, I always invite them to really look at the traditions that they've created, and maybe they want to create their own.
Mhm.
So, what is it that you want to create, whether you do it just as the couple or whether you do it as the whole entire family? You can create your own tradition,
Yeah.
incorporating the baby, and, however that might look.
Mhm.
Like, there's no rule book to say you need to be here, you need to do this one thing, and
Right.
everything happens on this one day, and there's so much pressure. There's
Mhm.
pressure anyway, like
Yeah.
so much pressure from family and whatever else on a normal, like on someone that's not grieving. And
Right.
it's just it's one day of the year. And I often just say it's one day. Like
Yeah.
it's literally one day.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do anything, don't.
Mhm.
If you want to voice yourself, advocate for yourself too, so that everyone else, so if you're obviously the lost parents, tell people what's happening. Tell them what you want.
Yeah.
And obviously, if it's the family, be okay with them maybe not showing up, or be okay with in doing some other inclusive activity for the baby,
Mhm.
because you're not going to make, more often than not, like everyone's like, oh, I'm too scared to bring up the baby's name because I'm afraid to make them sad. I'm like, but they're never going to forget their baby. You're not
Right. It's
reminding
like
them.
any loved one. Like
Yeah.
we're already living in this head and this space, and like we're never going to forget them. We're always thinking about them to some extent. So like a lot of grievers will say, I feel like it's you're not bringing up anything I'm not already thinking about. And there are, to be fair, there are some times where perhaps we are triggered or someone does bring something up and it's a little like, ooh, that was out of left. Maybe we weren't thinking about them for that second. and it was a bit triggering. That has, that's happened to me. That's probably happened to a lot of people. So I get it. I get why people want to tread lightly, but I also know that, saying nothing is worse than almost saying the wrong thing sometimes. It's hard. It's hard for people that are, the I'm going to say non-griever, for lack of a better term, to know the right thing to say, because it is so situational on the person who's grieving, and we all grieve differently. So, I've talked to some family members about this. They're like, I can't keep up. Like, I don't know how to support people. And I kind of have to laugh now. I'm like, that's fair. I mean, everyone processes it so differently, but I think those are some beautiful suggestions that you made. And it's the best of both worlds. You're at least asking. And I also feel like if maybe the parents just, maybe it's very recent and they don't even know what they want or need, you could at least ask it like in a way where it's like not open ended, or it's just like, does this feel right? Yes or no? Or, and just giving them just like an immediate, like, oh, that feels good to me, or, oh no, that doesn't feel right. And then you can at least get a little bit of clarification from there. And then that's all you have to ask. And, you're not berating them with, oh, how should we honor them this year, when they're just like, we just lost it 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Like, what do you, you know what I mean? Like, please ask someone else. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be really hard. And like you said, if it's early stages, having those closed questions would be really supportive, because you're not then leaving it up to the bereaved parents going, oh, actually, I don't know. You're kind of like, and in those moments of grief, you kind of do want someone to just take the reins and go,
Yeah.
this is what's happening. This is, all of the things. So maybe it is the parents or the whoever else,
Mhm.
coming to them with a suggestion and saying yes or no. Like, it takes out that whole thinking part that the parents have to do, because that's really hard when you're grieving. You can't think straight.
No, totally.
You just your whole human brain just goes
Yeah.
offline. So um you know but I think taking the pressure off them, like honoring them, acknowledging the parents and taking the pressure off. They can show up. They don't, they can if they want to, they don't have to if they don't want to. However it is that they show up, wake up that morning, they're like, oh no,
Not
yesterday
today.
I said yes. Today I'm feeling no, because it's
Yes,
each day is so different.
that can change too. Yeah. We could be having really
Um
good days or really bad days, and they're not always going to be on the same days. Or maybe literally in the morning you're doing okay, and then in the afternoon something triggers you, and you're just like, oh, just kidding. So just again, it's just that we keep saying holding space, but just, you know, and giving people grace if they maybe are not as organized, or if they commit to something and then have to back out or whatever. Just, being having lower expectations perhaps than usual. And
mm,
for anybody grieving, certainly. And this, of course, goes outside of holidays and everything too. This is very much just in general, but especially with the holidays coming up, because there can be such expectations around the holidays, or such, no, this is what we do. Us as family gets together, or people assume like maybe the parents should be surrounded by family, and like, oh, you should be. The shoulds, like, please, no shoulds, like, oh, you should be around people or whatever. Like, we've talked about how people process grief differently, and that can be highly overwhelming. Like, I'm sure you can speak to this, but I mean, yeah, that is not the antidote for everybody. So I know in some cultures it's very common to
no.
be
And
very like surrounded by, a lot of family members, and like that's a thing, but not for everybody. So
no, I mentioned before that I go inside of me when I'm trying to
yeah,
process. I don't want to be I don't want to be surrounded by multiple people and then trying to express myself and having to explain everything. I'm like, I don't even really know what's going on.
totally overwhelming.
So yeah, sometimes it is the complete opposite to what someone else is going to think. You should be around family. I'm like, no, I actually just want to be by myself. I
Yeah.
want to do my own thing. And just be okay with maybe setting a new tradition or a new something to remember their baby. And then you can keep that going.
Yeah.
Um, because I know, I mean, Halloween's coming up and then we've got Christmas. So both of the things are really can be quite triggering for the parents, because obviously they look forward to dressing their children in little Halloween outfits and going trick-or-treating and all of that. So there's that. They're going to be obviously grieving right like soon. And then Christmas is obviously like it's a big thing. Everyone's like, it's happy, it's joyous, be happy, be joyous, don't be sad.
Yeah.
But I want families to know that it's like this, however long they're going to need, however many Christmases, let them be sad, or let them be however they need to feel. And if they don't want to show up, don't put pressure on them, because it's not going to be just one Christmas. It's also going to be multiple Christmases afterwards.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, they're going to miss all of these milestone moments, and Christmas can be triggers.
Yeah.
Because, oh, my baby should be 6 months or a year or 2 years, and they should be doing this. So be okay if they want to actually express that, and maybe have some tools in your tool belt to go, you know what? Okay, that's okay. I'm okay with you telling me, and I'm not going to shut it down. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful example. Well, this has been the most enlightening, beautiful, just educational episode. Truly, I just am so grateful for all of your detailed insights. And really, I mean, and again, whether people have gone through pregnancy loss or not, like, somebody can get something out of this episode one way or another, and walk away in their grief feeling just a little lighter or more validated and just less alone. And I'm just so appreciative of everything, just all of this entire conversation. This is exactly why I wanted to have you on, and I could keep talking to you for like 2.5 more hours, I swear. And this is such a big topic too, pregnancy loss and all of it. There's so many, again, just versions of this, and just each situation I know is so different. So, just sending so much love to anybody out there today who has been through any type of pregnancy or child loss at any point. Sharna and myself, of course, but Sharna especially is here to help, and is really just such I'm going to say, unfortunately, an expert in this field from personal experience, but just all of the amazing education and everything you've done since then. So just to finish this off, where can people find you?
Thank you so much for all of that as well.
Always.
So grateful for you. So you can head to my website, so www.sharnasouthan.com. I am most active on Instagram, so Institute of Healing _PL. I do have the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast, which you can find on all major podcast platforms, and the Instagram page, which is just pregnancy loss _podcast. I will have a Christmas episode coming up as well, but I do have a PDF that I can send you, Tara, if you like. Right. So you can pop it in here. Just sort of little activities that the lost parents can do over Christmas to support themselves.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. As much support as we can get, right? In whatever forms we can take. Yeah. There's so much depth to this kind of loss, which I think is why we talked about it at such length today, which I'm so glad we did, because there are so many layers and complexities to it that need to be heard. So this is absolutely amazing. Just thank you again so much. And it's always just such a pleasure to talk to you and get to connect. So this is amazing.
Thank you so much. We've talked for a while, but I know that what we've shared, such impactful topics. So I encourage anyone to, if there's something inside of here that they're resonating with, to reach out to either Tara or myself. Open up the communication, and let's just start talking about it.
Yeah. Reach out that metaphorical hand that we've
Yes.
brought up 2 or 3 times today. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just start your healing however feels good and feels right. Yep. We're here. That's why we
Yes,
do what we do.
absolutely.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Sharna. Like I said, I appreciate this so much.
Thank you.